Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this webinar by the GSA project ARIADNA. Today we'll be discussing how Galileo satellite technology can support green and resilient cities. So we'll hear from both the ARIADNA consortium and other EU mobility players on how they have integrated Galileo in their plans and solutions. My name is Charlotte van. I work for UITP, the International Association for Public Transport, and I'll be moderating this session today. So before I very briefly guide you through the agenda, there's a very quick introduction into the TEAMS program, which we'll be using today. So if you're using the application. Sorry? Oh, if everyone can keep their microphone on mute. Thank you very much. So in Teams, you see the participant list, you have the chat box, there's the possibility to raise your hands, you have the webcam and the microphone icon, and there's the possibility to share your screen, which is really important for our speakers. If you're using browser for Teams, you have exactly the same icons, but they will be at the bottom of your screen. A bit more about screen sharing, mainly for our speakers again. If you're using this option, please use the desktop option. So everything on your screen is shared. And finally, we'll have some webinar etiquette. So we would like to kindly ask you, if you're not speaking during the meeting, to keep your mic and your camera off. Also, there is a chat box function, as I just showed you. If you have any questions, any feedback, you can always put your question or comment in there. Later during the webinar, we'll have a Q&A session, and you can always raise your hand during the Q&A session, and your question will be addressed. And finally, I would like to mention that the session is being recorded, and the recording will be posted alongside the presentations on the ARIADNA website after the webinar. Okay, I'll briefly guide you through the agenda. We have a very packed program, so I'll be rather quick. We have 3 sessions today. The first session will introduce Galileo and the ARIADNA project. First, we'll hear from Daniel Lepore, who is the Market Development Officer at the GSA, the funding body of the ARIADNA project. He will give us an overview about Galileo. After, we'll hear from Cristina Ananasso. She's the seconded national expert at the EC, the European Commission. She will give us an introduction on Copernicus, the EU's Earth observation program. After, we'll hear from Sergi Paniagua, who works at Pildo Labs, one of the participating companies in the ARIADNA project. He will give us some key value propositions of Galileo in public transport. After, we give the floor to Marty Joffre, who is the managing partner at Factual, the coordinating company of ARIADNA, and he will give us some conclusions of the Galileo for Mobility project, which is actually the predecessor of ARIADNA. And this session will be closed with Joseph Laborda, who is the coordinator of the ARIADNA project and CEO and managing partner at Factual, who will provide us with something on the use of EU space data and services in urban mobility. At 10:30, we'll hear from our experts, other experts. We have 3 people speaking here, or actually 5 in total. First, we have Václav Navratil from the Czech Technical University in Prague, who will provide us with feedback on GNSS performance in the Prague tramway network. After, we'll hear from Rebi, who is a shared mobility provider in Spain. We'll hear from Professor Eduard Alarcón, Cristina Castillo, and Alvaro Ferrer, and they'll give us some concrete use cases of Galileo and GNSS in micromobility. And finally, we'll hear from Michel Monrat and Hannah Albitar from Thales Alenia Space, and they will be speaking on GNSS and Galileo opportunities for urban mobility. And as I just mentioned, this webinar will be closed with a half-an-hour Q&A session. If you have any questions, don't be shy, put it in the chat, and we'll address these questions later. For now, I would like to give the floor to Daniel, and I wish you all a very pleasant and interesting webinar.
Okay, good morning, everyone, once more. I will try to share my screen as instructed. now you should be able to see it. Is it the case?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, yes. Fantastic. So, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time to join this webinar. ARIADNA is the first project that is entirely dedicated to urban transport and mobility agenda. We had some particular project in the past as the GSA agency funding in this direction, but indeed it's the goal of ARIADNA to continue providing awareness about the Galileo benefits for urban public transport and the green cities in general. As you know, with the Green Deal agenda on the table at the moment, the attention is rising also at the political level. But in our case, we have been dedicating quite attention already in the past to several municipality-related and green city agenda for what concerns also our presence in the smart city agenda. We did some activities even there. So I would like to just briefly summarize for the introduction a couple of words about us as the agency, our services, and the value proposition for the urban municipality / green city agenda. So in brief, for those of you who don't know us, we are an EU agency that is actually dealing with the European space program with two concrete products up till now, Galileo and EGNOS, and in the future we will be also taking care of some additional activities that are linking space to users' needs at this point from perspective of observation. Hello? I guess that somebody is not muted. Can you please mute yourself? Thank you. Please let me also know if there is a problem with the audio so that I can correct or go closer to the mic. Let's continue. So, Copernicus star is going to be. There is a strong echo. I'm sorry, but somebody is not muted. Can you check, please? Okay, thank you so much. So Copernicus part is going to be presented by Christina Ananaso right after this presentation. It is a very important part of the space program because Earth observation is very attractive from many application points of view for municipalities as well, but also for the transport or any other applications that you see in the circle right in front of you. So the GSA is responsible for operations, security, service provisioning, and market development of the European GNSS program at the moment. And our focus is on the segments in the circle. I'm in charge of the rail transport and urban public transport, and a little bit also for what concerns logistics. As you can see, the variety of segments is very broad, and in market development, we are split into groups of experts dealing with the individual market segments. So we are trying to cover also the user needs, making sure that they are taken into account for future development of the European GNSS program, such as in case of the last week's user consultation platform, where we had several sessions discussing with users what are their needs in terms of accuracy, availability of the system, etc. The systems that we are talking about, first of all, it's Galileo. Galileo is offering initial services already since the year 2016, and it's making available a couple of services. The most well-known one is the Galileo Open service, available freely to everyone around the globe. So it's a global navigation system, similar as the GPS. Then we have a public regulated service, which is available for, or intended to be available for, services like, for example, the integrated rescue systems, police, firefighters, ambulance, etc. So it's a system with higher robustness, higher availability, and encrypted. Then we have a search and rescue service to assist people in distress, high accuracy service, which is a specific service for sub-meter level applications. And last but not least, also signal authentication service, the so-called OSNMA, Open Service Navigation Message Authentication, which is improving the trust that can be placed in the GNSS-based localization. Another system that we are providing already for many years is EGNOS, which is certified for use also in safety-critical civil aviation applications from 2011. It is an additional system on the geostationary orbit that is providing corrections to the GPS and in the future also Galileo signal in order to make sure that the users using GNSS for safety-relevant applications can rely on the signal and also on the positioning outcome of the applications, which is especially crucial, for example, for an airplane which is landing or GNSS eventually for signaling purposes. So such applications are the main consumers of EGNOS, but also other applications like traditionally the agriculture, they are using EGNOS in more than 80% of the devices. EGNOS is installed for accuracy reasons because EGNOS is capable also of providing corrections and improve the accuracy of the positioning solution in good conditions with a strong availability to around 1 meter. So for what concerns contribution to the green city and the urban agenda, so Galileo will contribute, especially in frame of multi-constellation. Yeah? So if the municipalities decide to go ahead in their applications to deploy GNSS, it is highly advisable to ask for multi-constellation receivers, which are actually enabling to use not only GPS, but also Galileo, GLONASS, COMPASS, all the other constellations in order to ensure that they have as much possible availability as the GNSS services currently offer. Galileo is a special case because it's also multi-frequency, which is again contributing to a possible robustness of the positioning solution, but also it's strong for what concerns multipath mitigation, because the two different frequencies are reflected in a different way, and they are capable of offering a better way how to mitigate multipath. So how to mitigate other negative effects, including the ionospheric delay of the signal, which is traveling from the satellite to the GNSS receiver, which is again offering a wide possibility to the user to improve availability and accuracy of the solution, about which you will hear, by the way, also from my colleagues that will be presenting concrete solution, not only from the R&D projects, but also from deployment, like the one already announced from the city of Prague for the tramways. So last slide before I hand over to Christina. What is important for the municipalities and for the green cities as an information how to move ahead if you want to deploy Galileo. We would like to ask you to ask from the solution providers, if you will be deploying your systems, to deploy only solutions which are based on multi-constellation receivers that support at least GPS and Galileo. This is going to improve your positioning availability and accuracy for no or very minimal additional cost. It's very important for you to remember in order to make sure that you are using multi-constellation with Galileo inside to take the benefit of work that we are doing. Then also optionally for those of you who require better positioning accuracy with regards to multipath, you can ask for as optional for a dual frequency support of GPS plus Galileo because of the benefits that I was briefly covering before. Then, of course, if you want to have a further improvement in the accuracy and you have a good visibility conditions for applications that are more a bit open sky condition based, it's always good to ask also for a possibility to receive the EGNOS corrections, which is another function of the receiver. We have a tailored position paper that we did especially for the public transport, for the urban authorities and operators, which we can share with you eventually. You can get it also through our colleagues in the ARIADNA project, and we offer also for the municipalities to consult with the GNSS experts from our agency in case of some peculiar conditions of your applications. So I hope that I covered sufficiently. Thank you very much. And now I would like to hand over to Christina. I'm staying around, but otherwise I wish you a successful workshop. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, let me try to share my screen. Sorry, I don't find this. Just one second.
If you're using the application, Christina, it's in the top right, next to the leave button.
Okay, yes, right. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we see it.
To go back to the first slide then. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So thank you for inviting me to this webinar. I think that, okay, my name is Cristina Nanasso. I'm working at the European Commission, DG DEFI, Defense Industry and Space, in the Earth Observation Unit dealing with the Copernicus program. I think that I am quite out of this world, but the intention is really to bring some insight on the Copernicus program, the European Union Earth Observation Program, also to this context that is quite far from our normal frameworks. So I will give a very short presentation on the program itself and what is Copernicus. Copernicus is not only Earth observation satellite flying, but is a very complex and huge program. In the center, the core of the program, there are 6 services that use Earth observation data coming from the space component, Sentinel, that are the Copernicus dedicated satellites, and other satellite coming from contributing mission. And the services use this data together with the in situ measurement coming from another component of the program, and also together with the modeling capabilities to deliver and to produce added value products and information. So we have 6 services. They are operational since 5 or 6 years, depending on which service, and they are marine, atmosphere and land monitoring, the climate change, the security and emergency management. All the data and the products, apart from the one coming from security that has a quite different data policy, but all the data are full, free and open. The Sentinels. The Sentinel, as I told you before, are the Copernicus dedicated Earth observation satellite. There are 6 different family of Sentinel covering different aspects, using different technologies. You can see from the right-hand side of the slide, you can have a multispectral optical or a radar or radar altimeter, and all of them are quite different. And for each of these family, we are planned to have till 4 satellites flying. Now in this slide are reported the ones that are already in orbit and the one that will be launched in the next few years. So these are the services, and in particular for this webinar, I'm going to give you a few examples, but then if you think that this example can be useful for your project or for other projects that you want to develop, or if you think that other other products coming from the other services will be useful, please let me know and I can provide you other information. So the first service that I want to introduce is the Copernicus Atmosphere Monitoring Service. Sorry, I didn't say that I have chosen these services because I think that they are the ones more close to the project you are working in. So the first one is the Copernicus Atmosphere Monitoring Service, and this is a very good example of observation data, in situ data, and modeling capacity that allow the service to provide different kind of products, as you can see in this slide. And these are, we call them the family of products. So I think the one that can be more interesting for you is the European high quality products and in support of policy user. Then there are other products related to the ozone layer, radiative forcing, the solar radiation and UV index, global analysis, forecast and reanalysis, and also bottom-up emission. One example of a concrete application is these products developed for quality manager, and the idea is really to give to the municipality a useful tool to take some kind of decision that can and then they can decide if they have to stop the car or if they have to reduce, for example, pollution coming from heating. And this is a product developed together with some municipalities, and it's now available for the European capitals. There is a daily analysis of local versus large-scale contribution to air pollutant concentration. And the idea is to reply to some question like, for example, where does pollution come from? Or what is the chemical composition of the particular matter? Another example of an application that can be useful for city planner and to make the city more green or greener is, for example, this application that is Montois Solaire, solar energy for solar energy application, and it is developed by Novelties for the city of Toulouse, and in this case can provide a satellite time series of available solar radiation for a specific location. Take into account obviously amount of clouds and aerosols that can have an impact on the planning of new rooftop photovoltaic solar panel. Are you here? Can you hear me?
Yes, but I don't see your screen anymore.
Yes, I see that something changes. I don't know. Can you see it now?
Yes, now we can see it again.
Okay. Yes. So, sorry. The next service that I want to produce is the climate change service that is really that want to provide information about the past, the present, and the future of the climate, and it only give to the user a user-friendly tool to enable the use of climate data to something that we call as actionable information that can be really used by the by the end user. In this service, we have there is the definition of the different sectoral information services. These are the ones reported here: water management, agriculture, tourism, and so on. This is another application that can be useful for city planning, and this application give information at high resolution for urban climate data for 100 European cities. And it's important, this is because the data coming from the climate change service as the reanalysis data using Earth observation data again and model at a resolution of 100 meters. The last service that I want to introduce is the land monitoring service. This service three main components: global, pan-European, and local. And the local component that can be more useful for your products or for your application focuses on different hotspots that are areas that are prone to specific environmental challenges and problems. So this includes a very detailed land use, land cover information for the larger European Union cities. It is called Urban Atlas. Information on the riparian zone along the European river networks and Natura 2000 sites. And it will also include, because it's still ongoing, the development of this last element, maps of coastal area in the future. From this service, this is an example of the local component. The last development of this urban atlas is the 10-meter high resolution raster layer containing building aid information. And it was generated for selected city in Europe. Another example is the urban green landscape that can support the citizen, but also the municipality and the local administration to give an overview of green areas, the possibility to have to increase or to monitor different urban green areas. So this is my last slide. Thank you. As I told to the organizer before, I have to leave in 5 minutes. So if there are some questions, or if you want to write me after the presentation, for me it's okay. I will try to give you some information if needed.
Thank you very much, Christina. That was very interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Looking at our agenda, we have Sergi from Builder Labs up next. Sergi, are you there?
I'm here. Hello, everyone.
Okay.
All right, so let me share my screen quickly. Can you all see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. So my name is Sergi and I work for Builder Labs in the Intelligent Transport Systems department. And today I'm going to be presenting some of the content that we have in our white paper. So as part of the ARIADNA project, we're one of the collaborating partners. We've done this a very important task, which is writing a white paper on eGNSS technology in urban mobility and public transport. And we have made this document with 3 main goals. One is to educate about Galileo. So we explain the Galileo system and what benefits it can provide and how it can improve current satellite applications in urban mobility services. To illustrate eGNSS benefits, as I'm saying, not only by explaining how improved accuracy and availability can impact the current GNSS applications, but also illustrating new applications and specific results from interviews, and as well guide mobility providers, all sorts of mobility providers, public transport, micro-mobility, shared mobility, etc. Guide all these stakeholders in how they can exploit the benefits that Galileo can bring. So, as I said, we've carried out interviews to elaborate this document with different mobility providers. We've also done desk research and obviously as well through all the knowledge that we've accumulated throughout the years of working in the mobility sector, we've been able to contribute more to this document. The target audience of the white paper is mainly public administrations, cities, for example, public transport authorities, regional authorities, and mobility providers, and obviously everyone who's interested in the topic as well. So since you've already seen a presentation about Galileo, I'm going to focus this presentation on illustrating GNSS benefits. All right, so as part of the document, we've created a sort of catalog of all the applications of satellite technology in different urban mobility services. Today, I'm going to focus only on bus services, public bus services, because I have a very limited time and I don't want to overwhelm you with lots of information. But it will be nice to see first review all the current applications. I'm going to mention a few of them, and then see specific results we've gathered from interviews with public bus operators, which you're going to see next. So how is satellite technology used currently in bus services? So for fleet management purposes, it's used for tracking vehicles on real time, so seeing where every bus is at every moment. Monitoring incidences, for example, if a bus encounters a problem, the operator will see that easily by tracking the real-time position and seeing if the bus is getting delayed a lot, impacting negatively the service, or if it takes a detour because maybe it's found an accident on the road. Satellite technology is also used, obviously, when sharing information with users. For example, through an app, you can show where the closest buses are of the lines that the user wants to use. It's used also for providing an estimated time of arrival of buses at each stop, and this information is then shown through the app of the operator and through the stops, through the screens. It's also used for obviously controlling the quality of the service, how the service is performing. So giving a real-time overview of the operations and, for example, critical uses like for the operator, knowing where every bus is in the line where it's providing the service. So in which stop and how far from all the other buses in the line is. And related to this, it's very important for bus operators also to regulate the service, meaning that if they identify at any moment that a bus is getting too close to the following bus, for example, to the next bus ahead in the line, they can send orders to the driver to slow down in order to maintain the frequency of the service that the transport authority wants. And other uses, for example, improving the estimated time of arrival, that is using historic data of what estimated time of arrivals was provided every minute in every stop, and seeing then comparing it to when the bus actually arrived to the stop, seeing how accurate that estimation was and try to improve it. All right, so now I'm going to show you some specific results we gathered from an interview with a public bus operator. It was TMB, Transports Metropolitans de Barcelona, and they operate metro services and bus services in the city of Barcelona. They're a public bus operator. And to give you the context, the operator in 2016 renovated the onboard technology of many of their buses in their fleet, and they took that chance to also update the positioning technology on their buses. So they went from a GPS-only receiver in their buses to a solution that combined mainly two technologies. On one side, multi-constellation, and you've seen already, thanks to Daniel, all the benefits that multi-constellation brings through better accuracy, better availability. So these new receivers were able to pick up signals from Galileo, as well as the other global constellations. And another technology that this receiver integrates is dead reckoning. And to explain very briefly what dead reckoning is, so when the receiver loses a GNSS signal or this signal is weak, it uses the sensors integrated embedded in the receiver, like accelerometer, gyroscope, to predict the trajectory of the vehicle. And I have to say that these two technologies, multi-constellation and techniques such as dead reckoning, work very well together. So they both bring their own value. And you'll see how they together work wonderfully through these examples. So what you're seeing now is one of the main roads in Barcelona. It's Gran Via. And you're seeing recordings from the positioning fixes that the receiver was providing on the bus. So the operator compared the performance of the old receiver, which you see on the image on the left, with the new receiver. And which is very important as well, they tested it with the bus providing service. So it's a very realistic example of how it can improve the service. So you can clearly see the accuracy wasn't good at all at some points with the old receiver, and how with the new receiver it can follow the road very well. So another example, and let me say that in here at some parts of the road, obviously there was this phenomenon of urban canyon, which you can see in the image on the left. Where tall buildings block the GPS signals and create a multipath, and that is very well solved with the new receiver. Another example is and problems that the bus operator was having is that when the bus went through tunnels in the city or semi-enclosed roads, the GPS, again, the GNSS signal had problems properly locating the bus. So here on the side closer to the mountain, all of that is, or many parts of it is through tunnels, and you're seeing the performance of the new receiver here. So as you can see, again, it can follow the road very well. So again, these two technologies are working very well. So that reckoning, when you lose GNSS signal inside the tunnel, is predicting the trajectory very well. But at the same time, thanks to the fact that there's multi-constellation and also Galileo, you can have a better positioning of the vehicle before it enters the bus. So that also contributes to better estimates by that reckoning technique. Another scenario which was a big problem for the bus operator is the operations and the logistics in their depot. So the parking facilities where buses stay during the night. And here you can see how in the old receiver, let me clarify that the depot was underground. So you see some buses parked on the surface, but there's also a whole underground level. So as soon as one bus entered the underground level, the positioning fixes went completely crazy. And with the new receiver, you can clearly see how the trajectory is much better defined. So again, thanks to multi-constellation Galileo, if we have a precise positioning of the bus right before entering the depot, the underground depot, then obviously the estimates that reckoning makes are better. So why is it important to actually know well where the bus is located inside the depot? So, for example, the bus was telling us how they have very big depots, facilities, obviously for parking, because they have
Sergi, I don't know if it's me, but I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Drop for a second, but I think it's okay now.
Okay. Thanks for saying that. Can you hear me well now?
Yes, perfect.
All right, so I was saying that for the bus operator, if they have to find a specific bus, obviously it's going to waste more of their time if they don't have a precise positioning. And another example is how bus drivers every morning need to go to a bus to start the service, and it saves them time as well in order to find the bus quicker. So to gather all the results that this bus operator TMB shared, so like I just explained, now they have more efficient depot operations thanks to the new receiver. They've went in some roads where there was this phenomenon of urban canyoning. They went from 40 to 60 meter error to 5 meter error, which is a big improvement. And also they've seen this indicator value positioning improve by 7%, and they have this indicator now 97%, and this shows how much time the bus is correctly positioned. And thanks to this, now they can see how they've improved. They've made more accurate the real-time information that they provide users. So that's all on my side. There's much more information in the white paper. It's currently in internal review, but it will be published at some point of next year. So if you follow us on our social media channels, you surely know when it's published. And I hope you found this interesting, and you'll be interested to also read the white paper when it's out. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Sergi. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
We now have Marty from Factual. Marty, I see you put something in the chat. I don't know if your audio is okay. I don't hear you. Marty, are you with us? I think he might be having connection issues. Marty, maybe you can reconnect. Might work. If not, we might ask Josep to go first and have Marty presenting after Josep, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay, perfect.
Do you see my screen now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, I will go very fast through my slides. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Josep Laborda, and I am one of the two co-founders of Factual, the company that is coordinating the ARIADNA project, which is a coordination and support action which will last for 2 years. We are now at the midterm of the project. We have 1 more year ahead of us. With these 3 main objectives, which have been very well summarized by our project officer at the very beginning of our webinar, which is raise awareness and visibility on the benefits of Galileo, Copernicus, EGNOS in the context of public transport and urban mobility. Also, Sergi did an excellent job in summarizing some of the expected and actual benefits of leveraging Galileo in the context of public transport and in cities. We want also to build the capacity on decision makers at city level mainly, and also at public transport authorities and operators worldwide. This is important. We have this worldwide approach with this project. We are not only targeting Europe, but we want to teach all decision makers around the globe on the importance of leveraging EU space data and services. And last but not least, we want this technology to be actually deployed and used and go to market and facilitate that technology providers get in touch with buyers of technology, adopters of technology, and that in the end we can facilitate more resilient cities, greener cities, better urban mobility in the end. We have a small but very well balanced consortium with partners from 3 different countries, including the UITP, who is today moderating this webinar, Pildo Labs, who has been very well represented by Sergi before me, the Polytechnic University of Catalonia, and Auxilia in France. Something that we didn't mention yet is the Space for Cities Forum, which is a stakeholders group that we have built in the ARIADNA project. It is completely free to join, so I encourage attendees today to this webinar. If you want to learn more about what we are doing, if you want to get technical advice, coaching, whatever you want to get from the ARIADNA project, we are more than happy to welcome you in this stakeholder group, where we have already more than 20 important players, including public transport operators, public transport authorities, cities associations like Open and Agile Smart Cities, Eurocities, and so on, and also some technology providers of receivers and board units that are being used more and more by all of these players. What you will get if you get in touch with us, either if you become part of the Space for Cities forum, or if you, for whatever reason, want to engage with us, is you will interface with the flagship project. We believe that this is the one project coupling Galileo with the public transport and urban mobility domains. So you will get expert support. It was previously mentioned by our project officer, but I want to stress the fact that if and when you need technical guidance and support, if you have any question, not only today during the Q&A session, but also afterwards, please rely on us. You have our website, our contact form there. So please get in touch. We will be more than happy to support you. As Sergi was also mentioning, we will be making public some important deliverables, advancing on the state of the art and on the benefits that you can expect from leveraging Galileo, significantly the white paper, but there will be more to come. You could, by interfacing with us, where you could influence in today's trends when it comes to more resilient, more sustainable cities. You will have the great opportunity to network with market leaders worldwide. You will get tools to increase your technical expertise so that you feel more comfortable when making decisions in the future for example, public procurement processes, where you hopefully will include that the receivers you will want to embark in public transport fleets will more and more include multi-constellation, multi-frequency receivers, because as Sergi just explained, the performance you will obtain is incredibly better and cost-effective. Because we want to engage with the mobility ecosystem worldwide, we launched recently a survey, an online survey, where we wanted to assess how stakeholders worldwide were addressing the needs to have more efficient urban mobility applications and services, and particularly in the field of public transport. We were very happy to receive a quite overwhelming number of responses, given the fact that the survey was quite technical and a bit lengthy. So we're happy to say that we have 70 respondents from all around the world. And some of the findings I wanted to share with you as a result of this study, of this survey, is that unsurprisingly, let me say, geolocation data is today currently the most used space data for planning and operating mobility services. But because this question in our survey was a multi-response question, you see that there is 1/3 of the respondents that said that they were relying on Earth observation data also for in the field of public transport and urban mobility, which is a quite promising result as well. But we also found out something that is neither surprising, again, which is that there is much room for improvement, and that is one of the main reasons why the ARIADNA project is relevant today, because we found that a slight majority, a bit more than 50% of the respondents declare that they have not yet heard of Galileo. So there is still quite a lot of work ahead of us as a project to raise awareness on what Galileo is about, what EGNOS is about, what Copernicus. So we will be organizing more of those webinars, like today's webinar. We will be writing articles and organizing many more activities in this next year of the project. There are some mistaken beliefs about Galileo as well. There are some decision makers at city level that believe that Galileo is not fully deployed, which is totally wrong. Some people think that there is a lack of signal availability, or the signal is not reliable, or this kind of misbeliefs about Galileo. And some people tell us that they think that upgrading their technological platform to include multi-constellation, multi-frequency receivers would eventually be complex or costly, which is totally wrong. So because of that, we provide this training and services from the ARIADNA project, totally free of charge for sure, and these capacity building activities on how to leverage Galileo for good in public transport. And some other PTAs tell us that they have ongoing contracts with technological suppliers, and that they feel that, well, it is not that easy to include Galileo. And here we encourage them that in future public procurement processes, and we will be working on this part, which is very critical, very important, together with our partners in the project, from particularly with UITP, to encourage that in future public tenders, public transport operators and authorities worldwide include the requirement to include Galileo. There's a strong belief, and that is also positive, that geolocation data will improve existing and also new mobility services during the COVID-19 crisis and afterwards. So not only for the future, it is well accepted and understood that geolocation data will play a significant role. Slightly more than half of the respondents indicate that they have plans to modernize or upgrade their transport solutions to be more sustainable, so greener, as part of this recovery plan. And you see here some examples how they plan to do it. And almost the majority, almost the 100% of respondents told us that space data they consider is useful for implementing a more sustainable cities and transportation strategies. And you see here a number of examples on KPIs that cities plan to monitor as part of their Go Green strategy. Sergi already mentioned that we will be producing this white paper, and there is already a deliverable already produced that we will be making public soon through our website. So where we provide a state-of-the-art in using and making the most of Galileo in the urban mobility and public transport domains. And last but not least, I would like to highlight the fact that we have organized an online hackathon recently, where we had the participation of entrepreneurs, students, young people from all around the globe. That was a quite overwhelming response that we got from these 11 teams. And because their ideas for improvement of human mobility was so overwhelming, again, we had a hard time as part of the jury to award the winner. So we finally decided to award not only one, but two winner teams, which are Sense for Air, which is a team that comes from the Netherlands, and Hamba, which is a team that comes from South Africa. Sense for Air just made a proposal for deploying a network of environmental sensors to be embedded in public transport vehicles, so buses, shared bikes, but also other vehicles to monitor the air pollution and noise. And because they need to calibrate all this network of sensors to make the most of this data, they found that relying on geolocation provided by Galileo would be a must for their solution. And Hamba was this startup that that have developed an artificial intelligence algorithm that pretends to make a better use of how the traffic lights in a city are managed in order to reduce traffic congestion and in the end also reduce, of course, CO2 emissions. And again, because they are managing a lot of data also coming from moving vehicles and moving travelers, the superior accuracy and availability and reliability of Galileo would be a critical aspect to make their algorithms better and in the end contribute to better KPIs. So these are two examples of these teams that will be invited to the final hackathon and to pitch to potential buyers of their solutions in the UITP World Public Transport Summit in Melbourne next year. So that is all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Giuseppe, for that. Also very interesting. Before we move on to Marty and later on our experts, I want to address the two small questions we have in the chat. So the first question we received is, how does one adapt Galileo? Quite a broad question, I would say, maybe. Daniel, maybe GSA would be able to shed some light on this? Daniel?
I had a bit bad audio at the moment. Can you repeat, please?
So I'm addressing one question. The question is, how does one adapt Galileo?
Well, it's quite a complex, but on the other hand, also a question. It's not about going up to space and taking a screwdriver to modify the individual satellites, but one can modify by simply instructing.
But Daniel, 1 second. I think not everyone is muted. Can everyone make sure their microphones are off, please? Thank you. Can you repeat that, Daniel? Sorry about that.
Just let me know if you can hear me well now at the moment. Is it okay?
Yeah, now it's okay.
Okay, fantastic. So in fact, it's about influencing the second generation of Galileo, because if you take into account how the constellation works, of course, every device that you shoot in the space has got its lifetime. And this includes also the Galileo satellites. They can last for about 12, 15 years, something like that, approximately. And then we will be updating the constellation, same as GPS does. Yeah? And in the new satellites, there is going to be new components, and they can provide also new services. So in reality, the users have the time to provide the requirements to us, to share with us what are their needs, in order for us to be able to discuss with the system and service engineers on our side and on the side of the European Space Agency whether such a system or solution or service would be feasible both economically and technically. And then if yes, if everything is confirmed, we can include the services as per the wishes and needs of our final consumers and users into the next generation of the satellites. I hope that this is clear.
Yes, that was a very clear answer. I hope that answered the question for you, Danny, who posed the question.
Yes, maybe if I would elaborate, I also participated in the hack ARIADNA. I am a mobility startup founder. We are providing public transport for health workers. So my question in regards to ARIADNA is how does one then you know, for example, for us, we're using an app-based solution where the health worker is able to book a ride. So we therefore need, you know, like we need geolocation so that we can be able, one, to specifically point out where the health worker is, and then two, we need to see all the available routes, and so that we can be able to see which route is most effective in terms of getting the health worker to work, so that they get to work in time using less traffic and you know, saving time and cost. So my question was, how do we, you know, connect with the team at Ariadna so that we can start developing and working together towards providing such a solution? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Joseph, maybe you have something to share about this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is very easy to interface with us. I said it earlier. We are to engage into a discussion with you guys after the hackathon we had, where we learned what you guys are developing these days, and in fact we have a dedicated activity in the project where we explicitly target SMEs, startups, entrepreneurs, so people like you that are rethinking how mobility could be improved by using Galileo. So just get in touch with us through our contact form, and I will be more than happy to coach you guys and yeah, together with you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joseph. Looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Joseph, and thanks, Danny. Then I'll quickly move on to the next question as we're very tight on time. This is for you, Sergi. When you say old service, do you mean GPS, and new service, do you mean Galileo? I expect the answer to be quite short to that, but please go ahead.
It will be short. Yeah, I was comparing two situations. One with the old receiver, the one that bus is equipped before 2016, before it was updated, and the situation after implementing a new receiver. So the old receiver was only picking up signals from GPS, the constellation, the American constellation, and the new receiver was picking up signals from different constellations, including Galileo.
Okay, very clear. I hope that answered the question. It did for me, so thank you, Sergi. Okay, then let's move on to our second session of the day. I would like to invite Vaclav from the Czech Technical University in Prague.
Yes,
yeah, great. Would you be able to share your screen? Yeah.
Can you see the presentation? Is it okay like that?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, so I'd like to talk about the achievable GNSS performance in Prague tramway network. We collaborated with the public transportation company of Prague for several months on choosing the right GNSS receivers for their tram. And I'll begin with some brief information about the tramway transport in Prague. Then I'll move to the difference between the real requirements on GNSS receivers for public transportation and the specifications that you can find in the datasheets. I'll show some variable receiver technologies that can be used for positioning, and I'll show some results of the measurements campaign that was in the real conditions in the city of Prague, and in the end I'll summarize those. So quickly about the public transportation company and the tram operations. In Prague there are 34 lines. It's more than half of 1,000 of the kilometers. The public transportation company owns almost 800 vehicles. We have 7 types of passenger vehicles, and the daily dispatch is measured in the T equivalents, which are the short 16-meter trams. So there's 840 T equivalents dispatched daily. Each vehicle runs more than 200 kilometers per day, and it's when summed up, it's more than 40 million kilometers total per year. So here you can see the network of the trams in Prague and the metro as well. And I'll move to the GNSS application that are today's interest. The key application in the public transportation company, the tram operations, is the improvement of electronic map of Prague, which is called EMA. The accuracy and reliability of this map is to be improved, and the goal is to enable further automatization and new functions of the electronic map. So safety is the first one. The key goal is to improve safety on junctions and crossing passages, and in order to be able to make possible more trams moving in the rail crossing at the same time. It also will be the receiver of the intended anti-collision system and accident video recording system, because there are more than 1,500 accidents each year. Only more than 200 are caused by the drivers of the public transportation company, but still they need to prove sometimes that they were not the ones causing the accident. The other application or other improvement brought by the GNSS positioning is the improved announcement, improved accuracy of announcement of the stations or stops, and also it will be possible to provide a real-time position and real-time delay information to the passengers. The precise positioning also brings some environmental improvements, especially in noise and dustiness reduction, because it brings the possibility to selectively lubricate the sides of the rails, and it reduces the noises that are present, especially when going through an arc or through a corner. And it brings also some operational benefits. It's reduced wear and tear of the rails and the undercarriages. And the least but not last is the precise positioning can bring some faster resolution of transport irregularities or some kind of emergencies. That brought us to the requirements on GNSS receivers for Prague trams. First, it's not used for any safety critical service, or still the driver is responsible for the vehicle. So no extremely high integrity levels are needed. Also, positioning in long tunnels is not needed. On the other hand, we still need some meter level accuracy and high position availability, and it is needed in the real urban conditions, not really in the data sheets of the receivers. The receivers have to be immune to some kind of interference that is possible from power electronics, and it needs to be compatible with all the tram types, and it still needs to have reasonable costs, and doesn't have to cost a lot to be operated. I'm getting to the specifications. First, I'm always talking about accuracy and not precisions. That's from a reason that if you look at the trajectory that was measured, it's the blue one and the blue points. You can see it's still very precise. The trajectory is very smooth, except this point. But the true trajectory is approximately this yellow trajectory, and you can see that even though you have very precise and clean trajectory, it's not accurate at all. It's, I'd say, 10 to 20 meters offset from the correct track. So this is an example of what can happen in the urban canyons. So the pursuit of the goal of the positioning in the cities should be firstly the accuracy and the second one is precision. It's better to have less precise position information than very accurate but completely offset information. Now I will talk about the differences between the specifications in the data sheets and the requirements that are for the specific applications in order to enable them in the city environment. So in the data sheets there is usually some accuracy information that is measured under the sky view when the sky is clear. There is no significant multipath. On the other hand, in the urban environment, there is frequent sky view obstructions by buildings, trees, etc., and also severe multipath propagation of the satellite signals. So that's the first. The environment is really different. The second thing is the accuracy measures are substantially different often. Most of the receivers lists the accuracy as the CEP, circular error probability, and it means that 50% of the measurements will be inside certain radius from the true positions. So half of the measurements is within this circle, and the other half maybe even hundreds of meters out, and so this number is usually rather small and optimistic. But in the real city, you need some reliability of the position information. So it's preferred to use R95% error probability. That means that you are expecting that 95% of the measurements will be in the radius of R95. Theoretically, under ideal conditions, this is 2.1 times larger than the circular error probability. But in practical, in the praxis, it shows that this number is sometimes even higher. And then there are also some measures of availability of GNSS and continuity. In case of the receiver that is under the open sky, it's usually the availability is deduced from the availability of the GNSS system, which is exceptionally good, and also the receiver reliability, so that the continuity is somehow measured as the mean time between failures of the receiver. On the other hand, in the city, the availability of the GNSS signals is severely reduced by the environment, so the continuity of the measurement becomes from the mean time between failures, it's mean time between the shadow wings of the sky, I would say. So that is substantial difference. Now about the possible measurement methods or types of position estimates. What I can say, and also the speakers before me told it that it's important not to use only GPS or only Galileo receiver or only GLONASS. The key to the successful positioning in urban environment especially is using as many constellations as the receiver enables. So at least it's important to use at least Galileo and GPS system. Then we have two options. We can use either so-called pseudo-range measurement or carrier phase measurement. The former one has accuracy around 1 meter and is suitable for most applications in the urban tram positioning. There are many variations. You can use standalone or differential positioning. It's usually very cost-effective solutions and can be used in single variant, which is very cost-effective, or for some slightly higher cost multi-frequency is possible. On the other hand, the carrier phase measurement can be used only in very expensive receivers and antennas. It requires also data connection. On the other hand, centimeter level accuracy is achievable, and it's for some really particular application, and maybe the way to go. And the other thing, as already was mentioned, the dead reckoning or using inertial measurement units, the accelerometers and gyroscope. It can be used for coverage of short GNSS outages. It can improve the performance in challenging conditions, but also it costs some additional money, and as well it's not always 100% improvement, especially for the very low cost inertial measurement units. Now I'm getting to the test program that we had with the public transportation company of Prague. The very initial test, that was really quick. It was organized in 1 week or 2 weeks. We have tested in December 2018 6 different receivers that we mounted on different spots on the tramway vehicle. It is actually this is actually a photo from the test. It was a short 2-hour test, and we wanted to get some overview. What are the options of the various types of positioning, and what we can expect in the urban environment, and especially in the Prague environment. In year 2019, we did more than 20 short tests, but a bit longer than the initial one, with various receivers from various manufacturers in various configurations. For that, we used a fixed antenna position, and we on the tram, and the test path was always the same, so we could directly compare the receivers one to the another. And also in 2020, we performed a long-term test. This was initially intended for 1 or 2 weeks, 11 days. And unfortunately, due to, or maybe fortunately, due to the pandemic ongoing, we couldn't get the receivers out of the tram because there were some safety restrictions, and the receiver was in the tram for more than 4 months, so we had plenty of data on that. And in this year, in the beginning of April, we assisted the public transportation company in the tender, and we were reviewing if the receiver that is to be chosen fulfills the specifications that were in the tender documentation. So now about the realistic antenna placement on the vehicles. It's in the trams, it's a bit more complicated than in the buses. Most importantly, the antenna has to be at the front of vehicle, but it may be from GNSS point of view, it's not the best placement. But from the operational, it's a must, because you need to know where the front of the vehicle is going. But there are some problems from the signal propagation point of view, like possible foliage by the pantograph. Also, there are some high current devices nearby. It's the main power supply for the tram near the antenna, which may cause problem in some cases. And also it's close to all other radio communication antennas, so we are afraid of some interference. So in the case in Prague, there were not any problems with this, but it may cause problems on some other models of the trams. Now, what was measured during the tests? We were looking on the position availability and position accuracy. We had 2 different metrics, and we also looked on the assumed position accuracy about what is the receiver thinking that is accurate. So, and we are tracking also for our information the number of visible satellites, type of positioning estimate that was currently used. And as I talked about the various methods, here is the cumulative density function of the position accuracy. So if you see on this this vertical axis, you can see that in 90%, for example, we were able to, with a particular receiver, which is each of the line, we are able to achieve some kind of accuracy. So with the green one, which was the high-end receiver, in 90% we were able to be below 100-meter accuracy. With the other one that did not have the dead reckoning unit, still the 50% value would be a few centimeters. In more than 50% of the measurements, the accuracy was below 2 centimeters, I would say. But as the receiver was moving in the city and was shadowed, for at least, I'd say 25%, the accuracy was substantially worse. And the yellow line is like the standard receiver, is capable of operating in city pretty well. And here the 90% accuracy was around 3.5 meters. And I have to say it's a single position, a single frequency receiver. For the multi-frequency receivers, it was even better. Now some examples from
Vaclav? Sorry,
Yes.
just a very quick note from me. Just a heads up, if you could wrap up in a couple of minutes, if possible, just to keep the time a bit. Okay, great.
Sorry for that.
No worries, thank you.
Yeah. So this is one of the examples from the challenging areas. You can see the outages here. And if we use different receivers, we can improve the availability quite substantially, and even the accuracy. So the blue is like centimeter level accuracy, the red one is like 20-meter accuracy. So there is also especially big difference between the possible solutions. And I'm getting to the summary. So first, the application-specific requirements should be defined, because the public transportation company always knows the best what they need. The performance degradation in urban areas with respect to the data sheet cannot be predicted with some accuracy, so it's necessary to try at least a few receivers which suit the best. It has to be assessed in real conditions. Regarding the choice of technology, always it is necessary to go for multi-constellation receivers, and it's necessary to balance the cost of the receiver and the number of enabled applications. And in future plans, as the new receivers are being chosen for public transportation, we are looking forward to monitoring of GNSS performance on the trends on the high number of trends. So I'm sorry if I was too long. Please, thank you for your attention, and feel free to contact me anytime at my email or via the ARIADNA project. Thank you very much, and sorry if I was too late.
Thanks, Vaclav, and no worries whatsoever. Very interesting presentation. Really interesting to see such a practical example of GNSS, in this case in Prague. For now, we'll move on to our next experts. I'll give the floor to Ripi, who has brought 3 speakers, if I'm not mistaken. Christina, I guess you're the first one.
Yes, can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Christina, one of the co-founders of Revi. Let me share the screen first with you. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I will introduce who we are, and then I will give the word to my colleague Álvaro and to Professor Eduard Alarcón, that he's professor at the Polytechnic University of Catalonia, and he is also our scientific advisor. We have been doing R&D with UPC since the founding of REVI in 2018. So we are a startup, a Spanish startup, that we design, manufacture, and distribute the vehicles. Our first vehicle in 2018 was the kick scooter. Then we launched the e-bikes, and now the mopeds are already in several cities in Spain and Italy. And we are developing a shared car. We are a team of 100 people, but we estimate that we will give employ to around 200, 250 people, considering all the operations we do in Italy and in Spain. Currently, we operate in Barcelona, Zaragoza, Gijón, Terrassa. Those are the cities in Spain. And in Italy, we have been awarded with several biddings in Lecce, Bergamo, Naples, Florencia, Taranto, and Caserta. So I'm going to pass the word to Álvaro. No, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I forgot one of my slides. Yeah, so we wanted to mention from a business point of view why REVI, no, that many could think we are just a vehicles operator, invest in this kind of research, in having a GPS GNSS module. So we have tried to summarize in 3 bullets the main reasons. First, we are in a very, very, very competitive industry. So we had to reinvent it ourselves. There were many companies, many strong ones, with a lot of financing. So we had to become very good in a technological point of view. So we keep improving our services and giving a safer ride and offering other complementary services like the sensors. We are in projects where we sensorize the vehicles to give information of the pollution at a street level. Also, another important point is that the public space is limited and the local regulations are becoming really, really tough. So we see in the biddings more and more the need that we are able to have a very, very good accuracy so the vehicle can know speed in different areas or the restrictive areas where the vehicle has to stop because it's not allowed to enter on all this. And finally, because we want to have a positive impact in our communities, in the cities where we operate, in the cities where we are trying to operate. So this is where the accuracy in the positioning, it becomes really important. So now I pass the word to Álvaro.
Hi, everybody. So first of all, we've seen over the course of this seminar a lot of very scientific knowledge being shared. We are at REVI, we're not geo-positioning experts. We're far from that. We are a data team that makes use of geolocation to carry out our work and offer our service. So, we'll try to offer a very brief, detail of how important this is to us and why this is important, right? So, firstly, like it's been the case for some speakers, this is the kind of data that we receive from our IoTs, carried by our vehicles, right? So again, it's messy data. Our IoT is, it will connect to whichever infrastructure is sending the best signal. So it will switch between Galileo or GPS, in the cases where necessary. But still, as you see here, lectures that we get are far from, these are just some random samples, right? They're far from precise, okay? It's worth mentioning as well, which we'll dive a bit more into later, that depending on the vehicle type, you have more degrees of freedom than others. So, so if you drive a car, you can make certain assumptions about which road it's on, or where it can be or it can't be. With micromobility, especially kick scooters and vehicles alike, they can be more places, right? So they can cross a plaza. In some cities, they can travel on sidewalks. They have their own specific lanes. So, it's when we have to put restrictions on where we think they really are, it becomes a bit of a tougher problem. Okay, moving on, right? So let's just pinpoint why we see this micromobility as being challenging, right? So every data point in our business needs to be geolocalized, not because we need to fully understand where the vehicles are, or what a trip looks like, but because it's one of the ways we also track the performance of our operational partners. Okay, so when someone is literally, we get data on someone fixing a vehicle on the streets, the only way we can guarantee that, as Revi, is, we know where the person is and we know where the vehicle is, right? And sometimes 10, 20 meters makes a big difference, okay? We use data for maintenance purposes. We use data for sometimes to know where the ride ends when we don't have the signal from the vehicle, but we have the signal from the user. We use obviously geolocation data for deployments, where to put the vehicles, right? As we just mentioned before, normal road networks don't necessarily apply to micromobility. Micromobility is always operationally stressed. Okay, so we're constantly on the road. We operate 24/7, nonstop, weekends, holidays. Okay, there's always maintenance. There's always battery swaps. There's always deployments to do. Micromobility and mobility as a whole occupies public space and needs to enforce local regulations. Okay, and this is a critical point, which I will extend a bit further later. We're always data stressed. That means we use lots and lots amounts of data to make decisions, and we need it to be precise. Okay, for example, coverage is one of our main KPIs. So understanding how much of the demand that we get is getting covered by our vehicles is used for a lot of critical decision making, and 10 to 20 meters makes a lot of difference, especially when we talk about micromobility, because it's a convenience transport method. And then we're forced to innovate rapidly to remain relevant. Okay, I think all the players in the micromobility space are somehow or some other innovating, and we'll put a few examples of ourselves as well. Now, why geolocation can hurt the business if it's not good or great? Okay, from a user's perspective, essentially, if they can't find a vehicle or they can't park a vehicle because we think they're outside a service area, but they're really inside, for example, which happens a lot. Essentially, they're unhappy, they're going to be less loyal, they're going to be unlikely to recommend, and we lose people because we're unable to properly geolocate our vehicles, okay? From an operations perspective, when operators don't find vehicles or they spend too much time looking for them, there's a waste of money from our side, just financially, okay? The loss of vehicles is a big problem because they're very expensive. And it's an additional obstacle to the operator people on the street. Okay, so they become less happy, which is another problem. Okay. As a whole, as a business, as you see there, again, the impact of as we just said, we have things like alarm systems that depend immensely on where the vehicles are located and why they are where they are. We have fleet uncertainty as well. So it's harder to meet local regulations when we can't be precise, and this is very stressing for my team, especially because it requires us to somehow fix the data that we receive when we think it's not very precise. Okay. So moving on. Let me try and move on. Pinpointing a bit what we said about local regulations, cities are moving towards designated parking areas. And this is a picture of Paris right here. And as you see, they're very small areas. They've taken space away from cars and given it to micromobility, which is great. But the way, so the essentially, if geolocation was great, and cities require us to enforce users to park responsibly inside these areas, right? So as you see, they're pretty small. They're about 4 meters wide, right? And this is very challenging because geolocation, within 4 meters, especially in dark areas, is far from precise, at least right now, right? So we have to find ways to guarantee that users park within these areas, even though we cannot fully rely on geolocation, right? So what we do at Rebi, at least, I assume most of the players, is that we go to machine learning algorithms, okay, which somehow help us understand the probability that a user has parked inside one of these areas. And within these algorithms, we use several signals, one of them being the final picture that a user takes when they end the ride. So that gives us a lot of information, right? So we can read road signals, we can read if there's other vehicles similar to the ones, if you're besides other vehicles that are similar to kick scooters, there's more probability that you parked, things like that, right? So we essentially, if we had great geolocation, we wouldn't need to do any additional work, because that's not the case. We have to substitute it for something else. Other things that we do, as you see in this example, is because parking is such a big issue. Sometimes we need to work on sidewalk width to understand if a vehicle is well parked or it should be relocated. So some of the work that we do is around understanding what the width of a sidewalk is, and in the case where we have certainty that is parked in a very narrow sidewalk, we have to send someone there to relocate the vehicle. So just getting this data and working with it is non-trivial. The use of designated lanes is becoming more of a request in cities, right? So you see a picture of Paris and Barcelona here, and if we look at the picture on the left, in Barcelona, you see how that bicycle lane is almost part of a primary lane, right? And that's just like about a meter. So it's really hard for us to know if a user is really using the bicycle lane or if it's using either of the primary lanes, right? So that even though we have there's algorithms that we can use to smooth GPS data, nothing is as great as 1 meter, right? We cannot get it that exact right now. Also, cities are each city has their own restrictions. So some of them require us to slow down vehicles in certain areas. Some cities don't allow you to circulate when there's 2 lanes to a road and there's no bicycle lane. So it changes from city to city, right? Which makes it even more challenging. And also the request for Rebi and the operators to enforce this good behavior, right, is challenging. The picture of this woman here is an ad picture, but she's on the sidewalk, right? And usually you cannot ride on sidewalks, but how far is that sidewalk from the actual road, right? It's just a couple centimeters, and it's a pretty dark area where she is right there as well. So some of the instruments or tools that we use to get better data is common or particle filters, which you might have heard of. Okay, they help us better understand what the real trajectory of an object is. We also do map matching when necessary. Okay, however, either of these come with their own challenges. Specifically, map matching, as we said, when we have micromobility and more degrees of liberty than a normal vehicle, like a car, it gets a bit more challenging to know exactly what road they're on. Also, when we do map matching, I don't know if you're aware, but we will use OSM, OpenStreetMaps, okay, which is by far the best tool there is. It can get very, very messy, especially when we cannot apply certain restrictions. So doing map matching in a picture like this, as you see, it can get, basically sometimes we don't really know what's going on. Okay. So in terms of smoothing, especially applying algorithms like a Kalman or a particle filter, they're good, but they're not as precise as we need in a lot of the cases. So as we saw, for example, in the bicycle lane besides or near a main street, when filtering under too many conditions, so when we apply too many restrictions, it's computationally challenging and expensive. Okay, so batch processing is all right, but real time, which is when we need it all the time, is difficult, right? It's computationally expensive, sometimes not worth it. Also, vehicles, we need to equip vehicles with more sensors to get better predictions and better estimates, right? And better probabilities of where vehicles are. So these things, we need to embark them with barometers, gyroscopes, accelerometers, so that when we filter, we do it under higher degrees of certainty. Okay. Good. I'm gonna pass the word to Professor Eduard now, so he will detail some of the extreme use cases where geolocation is not only necessary but critical, to be precise.
Thanks a lot for passing the baton. Good morning, everyone. I would like to upfront thank the organizers for articulating such as an interesting and intriguing workshop, trying to find a sweet spot in the technology push application pool. So thanks to Christina and Alvaro as well for the trident. I only have 2 slides and they talk about the future, so mine are the easy ones. We'll try to share with you a couple of mid-term to long-term applications that we're envisioning and conceiving and designing right now, and the challenges we are facing and the opportunities for emerging global navigation satellite systems, such as Galileo, which is not fully completed, but it's fully serviceable. And I hope that everyone in the audience is in pre-Christmas mood, and if not, at least, if I'm not mistaken, we are close to celebrating for the 4th anniversary of the commissioning and deployment of Galileo. That was December 15, 2016. Now, so one of the applications where it is crucial to have to maintain accuracy and integrity and continuity and availability of the Galileo geolocation data is that of collision avoidance. So we're considering not low-end scooters and electrical motorbikes, but mid-end electric cars, opposite to high-end cars. So of course, precise short-range collision avoidance is only obtained by embarking power-hungry radars in the mobility elements. But in parallel to that, and on top of that, we need a data-centric, cloud-based estimation of the likelihood of collision so that we can activate such power-hungry data. So we're considering Galileo and other GNSS data to try to estimate the likelihood of collision. And now what we are currently assessing is whether we can use the E5 wideband for submitter geolocation resolution, because we understand that that's a differentiator for Galileo. I understand that was discussed in the workshop already up to now also. So multi-frequency processing really helps in reducing the frequency-dependent ionospheric error. And of course, if not the Achilles heel, the true bottleneck that precludes using such wideband E5 frequency band for Galileo is the challenge and the difficulty of the receiver. So on the long run, we expect that hardware solutions will exist that would allow for mass market. In the meantime, we are exploring to have a software-defined radio leverage of that wideband information for submitter precision. That will be our position in the collision avoidance area. Now, if we go to the next slide, Alvaro, please. Now, we're now preparing and envisioning a large European project that also leverages EO data, but for pollution maps. We envision a system that will be able to provide both Europe-wide coarse pollution maps coming from EO data, so it's inferring ground level pollution levels, particularly CO and NO2, out of the EO data from the tropospheric air column, and then combine that with embarking low-end pollution sensors opportunistically, if I may say in quotes, into our scooters. So we envision pollution maps that can be navigated in multiple spatial and temporal scales. Now, how crucial is geolocation in this application that now we're designing? So it is very important to calibrate the pollution map data in this uncalibrated, low-cost, low-end sensors with EO data, but also with the high accuracy and resolution data that comes from the very few scattered pollution measurement base stations that exist in the city. Usually, the city has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maximum 10 high cost, expensive, high accuracy base stations for pollution measurements. We need to calibrate our sensors embarked in the scooters when riding in the vicinity of such base station. That requires calls for geolocation. So the requirements are less stringent as compared to collision avoidance, but still the requirements need to be in the order of meters. And this is what we wanted to share with you, with the audience. We're ready to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that presentation. Very interesting. I see we do have some questions, but I propose we first move on to our last presentation of the day. May I please ask Michel Monra and Anna Arbitar to share their screens, start the presentations.
We'll try to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Can you see it?
Yes, perfect.
Better now, you are in full screen? Oh, really? Can you see the screen in full screen or not at all?
No, it's not in full screen.
Okay,
it's not in presentation mode.
So I'll try to do it a bit. Now maybe it's better.
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay. So thank you. Good morning, everybody. So I think we are quite late, so I'll try to speed up the presentation because I think that many concepts have been already presented by other speakers. So on my side, I will try to focus on GNSS, Galileo. I mean, I would like European GNSS, that is Galileo and EGNOS, and what they can bring to the urban mobility. So in the presentation I would like to do is to try to give some examples of application and where are the key added value of those systems with respect to the needs of urban mobility. So first I will start with some key aspects and then maybe conclude with something that could open the discussion to what we need to do next after these examples. So first, to start, I think that if we want to address the urban mobility, the first thing that we have to do is to identify where are the congestions in the urban environment in order to bring a solution, to the congestion, still in a view of improving the mobility, improving the fluidity of the mobility in the streets. So today GNSS is a key tool for that, to identify the congestions based on several techniques that involve the GNSS. One of the main techniques is crowdsourcing, where we can bring and retrieve information regarding the displacement, the movement of people in the town, where the town is crowded or not, and where we need to bring solution in terms of public transportation or in terms of opening new roads, new flow to make it more flexible and more fluid. So crowdsourcing main aspect that we can mention is that today there is a standard available, which is the MDT standard, which is something standardized in 3GPP. So it means that it's included in all people mobile phones. When you send back to the mobile operator some information regarding your position, your displacements, and based on that, the institutions can make some statistics in order to retrieve where are the main crowded roads and so on. So it's a key function. MDT, it means minimizing drive testing. It's completely transparent for you. Of course, there is absolutely no information regarding your name and your personality and so on. It's just positions reported to the network. Second aspect, in order to retrieve this kind of information, dedicated IoT devices with the booming of the IoT applications. Of course, it's also a door open to many applications in order to retrieve this kind of information. So for that, the key feature that we need to have to be able to address this kind of technology to serve really this identification phase, it's low energy GNSS. And everybody knows that using a GNSS is everything but low energy. So it means that we need to work first on signals definition to make sure that the signals are very efficient in terms of energy, and also work in terms of receiver technology to minimize the energy of the receivers, and also on the hybridization. Together with accuracy, because if we want to be very accurate in all the statistics we do, we need to also improve the accuracy, which is a little bit antagonist to the low energy. So it makes a lot of R&D to put on these two aspects. And today we have demonstrated the capacity of doing that with Galileo signals, with specific design of the receiver, specific design of the use of the Galileo signal, especially using only a pilot tone rather than going to data demodulation and so on. So it's things that are already involved in many devices that we have provided by industrials like Thales and Thales Alenia Space. So this was the first aspect. Second aspect, when you know the congestion and so on, I think the way to act on the urban mobility is also to regulate the traffic for free flowing in smart cities. And to regulate the traffic, one big response today is the urban tolling, which is, I mean, just put a tax when you use your car in congested environments. And for that, of course, the GNSS is the key answer for urban tolling, much better than gantries and things like that, just because it allows a wide and easy deployment. It's the same device for a large area. It is a uniform approach, especially in Europe, for instance, if you want to deploy the same system everywhere in Europe so that you can take your car, go from Paris to Milan or to Roma. Better to have a system dedicated based on GNSS, which is worldwide, rather than relying on DSRC gantries or things like that. So there is a key example in France. We see the French eco-tax system, which was an eco-tax based on the GNSS, where Thales Alenia Space was in charge of developing the full positioning chain used to get the invoice to the user. So very critical chain, because of course, when your position is not true, when position has a problem, it means that you will send an invoice that is not due to a user and then cause many problems. So the main constraints to deploy this kind of solution based on GNSS is first the propagation, especially in big urban areas with urban canyons. Many people have talked about this issue of multipass and so on before. Second is the integrity, because when you want to send an invoice, you need to be sure about the position. You need to be sure that the person was at this position at that time to get the right invoicing. And third challenge is the cheating appeal, which, I mean, it's deploying or developing more and more with people using jammer and spoofer that you can find over, on internet for a very reduced amount of money, like 15 euros. So it's something we need to cope with if we want to deploy massively this kind of solution for urban tolling. So as a summary, need accuracy, integrity, and robustness. How to do this? First, for the accuracy, we can rely on Galileo. The Galileo signals has been proven to be much more efficient than the GPS one, and used together with GPS, it's again an added value. Many satellites, geometry better geometry, and the signals much more efficient regarding the multipass. This kind of signals coupled with new antenna technologies that you can put in your car with beamforming antenna, for instance, in order to avoid first spoofing, good response spoofing, and second to avoid and to mitigate multipass, because with your antenna you can direct the gain of your antenna in the direction of the satellites, and then completely zeroing the multipass and then improving the accuracy. Cheating response. Here you have one solution, which is the Galileo navigation message authentication, which is a unique feature offered by Galileo and not offered by GPS. And this will be the angular or the cornerstone of all the new generation systems for tolling. And integrity, of course, using the EGNOS signals to get the integrity of the system. Of course, using the geo of EGNOS is quite difficult, because here we are talking about using the EGNOS in urban canyons, so elevation can be a problem. So when we are saying using EGNOS, we are talking about using EGNOS through internet or through assisted GNSS, and then you can benefit from all the powerful information coming from EGNOS, from corrections, and also from information about the health of the satellites. The correction, just maybe if I may use a digression on that, the correction could be very useful when you use PPP from Galileo, and to initiate the process of ambiguity resolution using the EGNOS information could be very, very helpful to speed up the convergence process. So we needed accuracy, integrity, and robustness for this kind of application. And here again, Galileo and EGNOS can bring a key part of the solution, and make so that it's an enabler for this kind of solution. And we can beg that in the future, all the system based on gantry may be removed by GNSS-based tolling systems. So then, once you regulate the traffic, there is another aspect, which is to ease the movements, to multiply the offer in terms of movement through the autonomy, which is the next step. So the autonomy, we are talking about, of course, driverless cars, but not only. I think that in urban environment, autonomous buses is also a great response. It is spreading over many areas. And here again, if we want to have autonomous buses, of course, you will have a lot of sensors in the bus for that, but you will still need GNSS and Galileo. And you will need, when we are talking about GNSS, you will need high accuracy, which is also brought by Galileo with the new HIS service, which is the high accuracy service of Galileo, which is also a great response for this autonomy buses, but it's not enough. If you want to build such a solution, you need also integrity on the high accuracy, and this cannot be developed only relying on the system, but you need to rely on many other technology on the receiver part of the GNSS. In the technology, you have many technology at signal processing level, but not only, also at hybridization level. Use all the sensors available in the bus coupled with the GNSS to provide this integrity information on the high accuracy service. And of course, in the sensors, there is one which is very important, which is the hybridization with 5G signals. For, just additional measurements, but not only, for dissemination of data also, and also exchange of data between vehicles with V2V and V2X integration in the navigation systems. Then, after addressing the autonomy, you can, to ease and to make so that the urban mobility is better than it is today. You can improve the security of drivers, security of pedestrians also in an increasing amount of cars in the car. And for that, many applications, you have the advanced driver assistance system with auto signalization, lane crossing, things like that. Also a CITS, anti-collision system. We also discussed this before, and accident reconstruction. For that, you need integrity and high accuracy again, which is also a result of the combination of Galileo, EGNOS, and also digital techniques, because you need to retrieve information in a common centers, share information at high speed. So it means that we are going more and more to the integration of this navigation system, 5G system, and also digital systems like cloud computing and cloud sharing information for that. So then, to conclude and to see the what we can deduce from all this application, we see that today the urban mobility rely on the key pillars of GNSS: integrity, accuracy, low energy availability. So really, everything that is targeted in terms of KPI for the new or the next generation of GNSS and for Galileo. So you can see that in the diagram depicted in the slides, we have high sensitivity, low TTFF, indoor, and so on, which is going more in the direction of indoor and low energy, which is more in line with the IoT development. And high accuracy and integrity, everything that is related to this is more related really to the displacements of vehicles in town. And to provide those expected performances, of course, again, we see that Galileo can bring key features like the new signals, both wideband signals, multi-frequency, the HS service, which will be a key aspect of the response for urban mobility for sure, despite the problems that we saw on the multipass and so on, because this will be tackled with receiver techniques and antenna techniques. NMA, which is also a key answers for cheating, for spoofing, and so on. And EGNOS through EDAS, assisted GNSS, and as I was saying, key receiver and hybrid solutions. For that, with the complexity, I mean, we see that solutions are getting more and more complex, not only relying on, but relying on a full set of information, which means that we are no more talking about GNSS receiver. We are really talking about a system for positioning that gathers several sensors and also communication systems. I was talking about 5G, but also sharing information over clouds and so on. So really, we are no more in an area where we are developing receiver and try to build application on top of Galileo or EGNOS receivers. Really, everything is integrated in a full system. And that's why, if we want to take the maximum benefit of this kind of systems, of this complex system, we need standards for interoperability. We need standards to be sure that when we use a subsystem, the subsystem meets some expectations in terms of performances, meets some expectation in terms of interfaces, and for that, and meet the requirement of a given application. So for that, we need to rely on standards. And this is exactly what Thales realized 5 or 6 years ago. And Thales decided to build the standards because nothing were available at that time. And that's why we developed together with European Commission a standard at HC level to complement what has been done in Sense and ELEC and in HC. Sense and ELEC addressing really the needs for given application, and HC, and sorry, not HC, 3GPP addressing the answer from mobile phone device perspectives. Here in HC, what we try to do is a multimodal standards addressing all what was missing in terms of standardization. So first, the identification of the features to be standardized in terms of location performances with respect to the application we wanted to target, the integrity, how to standardize integrity like a MOPS, but for urban environment and car users, spoofing detection and spoofing reactions, interference and jamming detection. Second step of the standardization of a reference architecture of a system for positioning. Third step, standardization of the interfaces, so that when a device is put on the market, the device can follow the standards, and you can plug your device with another sensor. Like if you want to couple an inertial sensor plus a GNSS receiver, you are sure that the interface, the sampling rate, and so on are in line with a given reference standards. And 4 and 5, to standardize the minimum performance that you are waiting or that you are expecting from the device and the system. And 5th aspect, the certification process, because when we are talking about autonomous, we are talking about tolling, we need to have an organism that is able to put a stamp on your solution and say, okay, you can rely on this system. So all these standards have been developed, and they are publicly available at ETSI. You have the reference on these slides, and you can see on the bottom right of the slide that the system that is standardized is really complex. You have multi-antenna, beamforming antenna, GNSS receiver, PPP corrections, hybridization with any kind of sensors that you can find, coupled with server-based systems in charge of disseminating information to the device, gathering information reported by the devices on the terrain, and so on. And this system has been standardized with the minimum performances also. As you can see on this, we're addressing many aspects on the performances, not only the accuracy, not only the time to first fix and the sensitivity, but also resilience towards interference, resilience towards spoofing. Also, one key performance which is not often addressed, which is the time to service, which is not the time to first fix, but really the time to first fix. When we are time to service, when we are talking about PPP, for instance, which is high accuracy, many times, many solutions use a lot of time to converge to have a centimeter accuracy. And for that, we have many techniques to speed up this convergence time. And that's why in the standards, we standardize also the minimum time to give a precise position to the user. Standards, the minimum performance standards are made along, with respect to given environments, canonical environments. They are defined in the standards. And with that, now we expect that all the integrators will be able to rely on this kind of standard to build their own solution based on Galileo and EGNOS to address all the application I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. And I think that's all for this overview of the application and where we are in standardization and technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very interesting presentation, Misha. Very interesting. I see we're quite late, but we do have some questions in the chat. So I propose we take another 5 minutes. That will make us 15 minutes over time. Let's start. Let me see. We have a question for Rabbi from Sergi, actually. I think we still have Rabbi on the line. Yes, we do. So the question is, you mentioned how you have to make sure that your users comply with parking regulations, but is any of the cities where you operate requiring access to your positioning data to detect when vehicles are not parked correctly and find them or remove them? Christina, I don't know if you are able to address this question. It's in the chat, if you would like to reread it again.
Yeah, we're going to reread it. Sorry. Let's just... ¿Dónde está Cristina?
That the fleets are with sensors to collect location data.
Okay, we see it.
Okay.
So,
Bueno, sabes sobre los sensores, ¿no? Yes, so this is a pilot project between UPC. Maybe Eduardo, you want to explain, because in fact it's a project between UPC and the City Hall of Terrassa, where Terrassa is being used as lab city. And Revi is the provider of the technology and the sensors. So Eduard, I don't know if you are there and you want to explain it. Eduard is not there. He might be back to class. So I'm going to explain it. Terrassa, they are putting a lot of effort in they only have one pollution station. So they can only know the level of pollution they have in the city in that day or in that hour. Okay, that is one measure. Or you can they can like do some assumption with other stations that are in other cities not far away, but at the end what you get is a gradation, no, a color gradation. So what we are doing with the sensors that are embarked in the kick scooters and bicycles is that we provide the data in that street, but then what we do is that we calibrate the whole fleet each time that one of the scooters or bicycle pass near the pollution station, the big one, that is a high precision one. So the sensors that are in the vehicles have lower precision, but are calibrated with the fixed one. So, and why they use this data? Sorry, because they to make decisions. No, you have streets that are very polluted in certain hours, so you can make the decision in which ones you want to invest public money first in, like pacify or reduce the transit. And according to the information I know, they are giving priority to schools. Terrassa city, it's really working hard in having not polluted schools, because it has been proven that the pollution can affect the kids while they are developing, can affect the brain. So this is one of the reasons why they use this data. But in general, when you have to do urbanism or change or pacify streets or try to reduce cars from the street, it helps you to make the decision which street you have to act first.
Okay, thanks a lot for that, Cristina. Sergi, is that an answer to your question?
I think the question they read on the chat is Michele's question about pollution data. Mine was.
Oh yeah, you're right. Sorry, I confused the two. Yes. Well, Michele, I see mightn't be here anymore.
I can just quickly.
Indeed, Cristina. Yeah, you answered, but that's one question already answered. Indeed. Yes, Sergi, if you could explain your the first question posed.
Yeah, no, I was just curious because you said that you had to control that users park in the designated areas and don't park on sidewalks and ways they're not allowed. I was just curious to see if cities were requiring you access to this kind of data so that they can implement mechanisms to also make sure that the space in the sidewalks is used correctly, or if they're not thinking about those things yet.
So they're not requesting this information specifically. So, you know, what percentage of your trips, well, some of them do actually. No, not specifically on a per trip basis, but like what percent of trips are ended like properly or not, right? And moreover, some data that we are giving, which is we find even more relevant, is the occupation of those parkings, depending on like the time of day and day of week, right? So they can ultimately better plan for where and to put more spaces, like for people to park. But I wouldn't say it's one of the critical data points that they request yet.
Okay.
I could add that we are being quite proactive in the data we provide to the city halls. Like if we detect places where the percentage of bad parking is quite high, we will report and we will suggest what we could do. If we detect hotspots for accidents or something, we will also report. Yeah, I would say that it's more from us to them than what they are requesting. Nowadays, what they request to the companies is very basic, no? Number of rides, number of users.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, and excellent presentation. I really liked it.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks a lot, Christina. Thanks. I saw we had another question from Michel, but he's already answered it because he has to leave the webinar. Thanks very much for that, Michel. Thanks very much. Sorry.
No, I was just saying thank you.
Okay. Have a good day. Thanks a lot, Michel. Okay, with that, I propose we close the webinar. Thanks everyone, the speakers and participants, for your great input and your attention. We will post all the presentations and also the webinar recording on the Ariadna website, including Marty's presentation that unfortunately we didn't get to do because of connection issues and also of time restraints at the end. But you will find this presentation on the Galileo for Mobility project, also on the Ariadna website, and we'll circulate a link as well. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. You can reach us via the website or via email or social media, however you like. And yeah, thanks again and have a great weekend ahead.
Thank you very much, Charlotte.
Thank you all.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much for the opportunity. Bye.